Hi everyone, my name is Meg. I'm the area director for SOA, and I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about creating inclusive spaces and community as an RA. To me, that breaks down into four main areas in the RA role: creating inclusive physical space, programming, checking your own bias, and then role modeling as an RA. And so when we talk about creating inclusive spaces and community, we're really talking about creating spaces that are inclusive of all races, nationalities, sexualities, gender identities, gender expressions, ability, religion, and the list really goes on and on. When I think of physical space, I think of, as an RA, creating door decks for different residents that are inclusive of everyone, so trying to keep them gender neutral. For example, in my past before LC, I had an RA who made Prince and Princess door decks because they were really into Disney. And although that's awesome and amazing, me personally, I'm cisgender and I identify as a woman. However, I wouldn't really want a princess door deck. So I think creating ways that door decks don't conform to gender roles or just man and woman and the binary can be really helpful, and it's the first thing a student sees when they move into their room, where even if they haven't met their RA yet, they see their door deck and they know that you are there to support them if their chosen name is on their door and there's not a gendered door deck. Also, bulletin boards and the topics you choose for your bulletin boards can be a great way to cover a specific topic or issue with residents, and again, keeping those gender neutral and as inclusive as possible. And if you ever have questions about what you should or shouldn't put on a bulletin board, your area director is a great person to talk to. My second point was programming. So really taking into consideration with your programming, not just what your interests are and what you're super excited to program about, but also the identities of your residents and their interests, and taking them into consideration when developing those programs. An example I will use is I had an RA who was doing a karaoke night in Aiken. As many of you probably know, there are many international students that live in Aiken, and so they added this extra little twist that was really awesome, where they made it an international karaoke night. And so you could come and sing your favorite karaoke song in any language, and I believe our turnout was significantly larger because of that element that was added to the program, really taking into consideration the interests of the residents. And that program actually had a part 1 and 2 because it was so successful.
Yeah.
Thinking about movie nights, I always ask my RAs who we are representing in the movies and who might be underrepresented in certain movies. And so that doesn't necessarily mean that we need to pick a movie for movie night that encompasses every identity that I listed earlier. However, that we have a variety of movies that do cover different topics. So, for example, in Aiken, in Stewart, in Odell, at different times we've shown movies that aren't in English and instead had English subtitles, so that a variety of students could enjoy the movie and not always have to be the one reading the subtitle. My third point was checking your bias, and so really thinking about when you inevitably may document an incident, thinking about whose door you're knocking on and whose you might not be. Your friends down the hall that maybe look like you or share a lot of your identities, and you're less likely potentially to knock on their door than someone else's who's being equally as loud. So really taking the time to step back and say, okay, what am I documenting and what am I not, and what is playing into why I'm making those choices? And those are, again, great conversations to have with your area director. So as we all know, being an RA in many ways is like living in a fishbowl. Everybody's looking to you to role model the behavior that campus living espouses, what our values are. And so frequently residents will look to you, and that feels really good when they say, like, you're such a good RA, you're so involved, I really appreciate you. But being a good RA also involves some of those difficult conversations with residents, addressing a concerning sign on the door, or addressing something that a resident shouts in the hallway, or something that a resident brings up in a roommate conflict. that may in some way be connected to systems of oppression. And so those conversations are really hard to have, but incredibly important to have. And so building that trust with residents from the beginning so that you can have those tough conversations is how we make it feel more like a home here, and how we make those inclusive spaces for everyone.